Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to Mystical Munchies, featuring the Cooking for Wizards, Warriors, and Dragons cookbook. We made the entree, or the appetizer last week, chicken stuffed pastries. Those turned out to be really good. This week, we're making the baked pears with Gorgonzola and Candied Walnuts. This one's inspired by Jacqueline Carey's Kushiel's Legacy series, which, unlike the series from last week, I have read the Kushiel's Legacy series. So let's start off by telling the story for this one. At the very beginning of Kushiel's Chosen, Anguisette Phaedra no Delaunay faces an impossible task with only one possible outcome. After saving her kingdom and her queen from the machinations of Melisande Shahrazai, Phaedra explains to the person she loves, her bodyguard, her dearest friend, her companion through the darkest days of betrayal and exile, that she must continue to serve her queen. True to herself and the vow she made to her country and her patron god Kushiel, Phaedra tells her beloved Jocelyn and waits to see if he will accept her choice. While she waits, Phaedra also breaks the news to the rest of her chevaliers over a dinner that starts with this side dish. Looks like it's fairly simple, but the ingredients as usual are waiting for us over at the table, so let's head in that general direction. As you can probably guess here by the ingredients split, we do have something of a two-part recipe. So for the pears themselves, we need 4 Bosco pears. I think these are just regular pears as far as I know. Let's see if there's anything special. They're Bartlett pears, but they'll do because they were the only ones I could get a hold of. A tablespoon of olive oil, and I believe it's a third of a cup of Gorgonzola. So we're probably going to just end up... I might have only needed to grab one of these, but we'll see how they taste. So, and then for the walnuts, we need half a cup of sugar, 1.5 cups of raw walnut halves. I'm using just plain California walnuts, and 1/8 teaspoon of salt. With that, let's move into the kitchen and start putting this recipe together. I've got the oven preheating to 350 already, so in case you start hearing the oven, that's what's going on. The first thing we're going to do here is we're going to line a baking sheet, if I can get it to tear, with parchment paper. Then we're going to bring that off shot and bring the cutting board that I've got in here back in shot, because what we're going to do here is I'm going to grab a spoon and now we're going to take the pears, once I get them open, I'm going to grab a plate as well for storage purposes for the time being. I'm going to slice the pears in half and scoop out the cores. And see if this scoops clean out. Okay, that's not scooping as... Oh! I was going to say it's not scooping as well as I thought it would, but it's actually scooping just fine. I'll bring that in as well. Pull that off. Nope. Did not want that to happen, but let's see if I can bring that in at least a little bit closer. We can put those there. We'll do one more of these and I'll shut the camera off to do the other two. Okay. There we go. And we'll tear that off. We'll scoop that one out. Not as pretty, but it'll work. So with that, I'm going to turn off the camera, scoop out the other, deal with the other two pears, then we'll come back with the pears ready to go. Now that we've got the pears sliced and cored, I'm going to take the olive oil, make up a tablespoon of that, put it into one of my coffee mugs. And the reason I'm doing that as you'll probably be able to guess once you see this brush, is we're going to be brushing the pears with the olive oil. I'm not sure if we're supposed to brush the underside or the skin side, because of course the recipe doesn't specify. So I'm just going to brush this side. My guess is I'm supposed to brush the underside, but we'll probably find out once the recipe's done and we're over at my desk for the taste test. I want to make sure I use up this olive oil. And we'll drizzle a little bit of it over the pears. Okay. I think that's probably all we're getting out of there. But now with the oven preheated, now we're going to take the pears and put them in the oven for 20 minutes until they're tender. So I'm going to have to move the camera just a bit so I can open the oven with no intrusions. We are. Set a timer on my watch for 20 minutes, and then we're actually going to move over to the stove for the next part of the recipe. We're not going to sit idle. We're at the stove and we're not getting ready to heat up oil. What did you think this was? Deadpool month again? Anyway, while the pears are cooking, while the pears are baking, I've already lined another baking sheet with parchment paper because I'm going to need that. While the pears are cooking, I've got the timer on my watch. We're going to place the sugar in a heavy-bottomed pot, which I hope this one is going to be heavy enough for that. We'll find out. We're going to stir it with a wooden spoon, which I've got here. We're going to stir that until the sugar turns an amber color, which should take between 5 to 7 minutes. So we're going to watch that in real time, because cooking sugar with no liquid at all in the pot makes me very nervous. But we're going to give this a whirl anyway. Got the sugar right here, which we'll put in. That can head toward the dishes. The sugar can head back up. Does it say what to set this on? Over medium heat. Okay. So we're going to turn that to about a 5. I will be stirring it constantly. We'll give it a couple. We're going to give it a couple minutes to come up to temperature. We'll give it a couple minutes before I start the timer. I'm probably going to use one of my kitchen timers, whether I use the microwave or the stove. That's part of why I wanted to set one of the timers. Grabbing my drink, by the way. That's part of the reason why I wanted to use the watch for one of my timers, so I had the other external timers free. Oop. I think I turned on the wrong burner, because I am brilliant today. It would help if I turn on the right burner. Alright, now that we've got that little derpiness figured out, now we'll be stirring this constantly, and again, probably another boring part of Mystical Munchies to sit and watch something happen in real time. But once again, as I've talked about in the past, I do a lot of this stuff in real time just to make sure I don't screw up these, well, I would say to make sure I don't screw up these recipes, but that wouldn't be completely accurate because things can happen even when you're watching stuff happen in real time. I'm making sure I have less of a chance to screw it up in real time, especially if I try to get cute and come on when something needs to happen pretty much like that. Hopefully I'm just being paranoid and cooking sugar like this isn't as nerve-wracking an idea as I think it's going to be. But we are all going to find out together. Okay. Here's about another 14 minutes left on them. Get myself a quick drink because my throat's getting a little dry. We're obviously not gonna watch the pears cook in real time because I'm not gonna sit here. I'm not gonna make you guys sit and watch the stove for 20 minutes while the pears are cooking. I'm just seeing if I can clamp this parchment paper down a little bit more. In case you're wondering what the crinkling is you're hearing in the background. I'm just making sure the right burner is actually heating up now, and it seems to be. Okay. Okay, now that it seems to be up to temperature, I think now we're going to start the kitchen timer, which is the sound you're hearing right now of me setting the kitchen timer on the microwave. I'm going to set that for 7 minutes, but I will cut it off if I think I'll cut it off early if I think the sugar's about where I want it to be. I'm also going to throw one of these containers of Gorgonzola in the fridge since I only need one. I think you're going to go there. Okay. Trying to be able to get a look over the top of this. I did want to use this burner initially, but it didn't look like the pot I was using was going to hold well enough. It kept wanting to tip over as I was trying to put the pot down on top of it. So that's why I'm using the rear burner, because that burner feels a bit more stable. Okay, we're starting to get some liquidy presence in there. Okay, now it's definitely starting to change. Okay. Actually, I can probably just leave that in there like so. I normally would be putting this on top of a spoon rest, but I think we'll probably be fine if I leave that wooden spoon in there. Wood doesn't usually conduct heat, so I'm not too worried about burning my hand on a wooden spoon leaving it like that. At least in my experience, it doesn't. I have a feeling this is going to end up going the full 7 minutes though, and I probably was being paranoid earlier and being nervous about the sugar scorching and sticking to the pan, especially if I'm making sure I'm stirring it constantly. Kind of got to come at a little bit of a weird angle. Trying to get the stuff essentially closest to me broken up. Okay. Looks like that is starting to turn a pretty nice color. Bring the walnuts in since it looks like that's where we're going next. Oh wow, that's starting to turn a really good color. I've got the walnuts ready because we'll be adding those to the sugar mixture once the timer goes off. Does it say to remove it from the heat? It doesn't, but I imagine we would have to pull it from the heat once the timer goes off. It's turning a really good color, but there's still some clumps of sugar in here. I'm going to see if I can break some of those up. That is a really good color. See if I can get a... Actually, maybe... I don't want to tip it too far because I don't want the liquid to fall. I don't want any of the sugar to fall out, but that is, like I said, that is a really good color. Grab my pair of scissors over here. Since, like I said, I will be needing the walnuts next. And in about a little less than 30 seconds from the looks of it. I'll go ahead and cut those open. Alright, here's your 4-second warning that you're about to hear the nuker beep. There you are. So I'll move over to the counter where I can get my drink. Let's actually put the camera right about there. We'll kill the heat, pull the sugar from it, set it down on the counter, and we'll go ahead and add the walnuts. Whoa, that's way more. That's probably way more walnuts than I need. Yeah, I think that's probably way more walnuts than I need. So I'll take some of these back out. Grab a clip for these. We'll see if we can mix these up. Whoa. Ah! Okay, yeah, that was definitely my fault for just dumping the whole bag in there. I think I way overestimated how much was in there. Which is not helping me get these down to the sugar. Probably would have been a lot easier if my dumb self would have actually remembered to grab the 3rd cup measuring cup. Whoops. And also, I don't know if it's just the quantity of walnuts I went for or what's going on, but it's probably the quantity of walnuts I went for, but I seem to be having a hard time getting the sugar in here. I'm going to move these out in batches to start cooling. Whoa! Alright, I'm just going to start throwing some of these out. But it's not helping either. It's not helping that even taking into account the fact that I either wasn't supposed to pull these off the heat, or I just used way too many walnuts. But yeah, I'm looking at this and it's like we've got a clump of walnuts here. I probably was not supposed to remove these from the heat. Yeah, this is not working at all. I'm going to grab a spatula here so I can see if I can separate some of these off, but this is not working at all. This is a gooey mess at this point. And I think even when you take the I used way too many walnuts factor, even when you take that out of the equation, I don't like how this is clumping at all. So I think we salvaged it, but it's definitely a gooey mess. Like I said, I either wasn't supposed to take it off the heat, or it's just going to end up being a gooey mess anyway. But I think we'll just let that cool now, and then we'll wait for the pears to come out of the oven. So when we come back, we'll be ready for that. Oh, we do have to season it with salt before we take it off, but that is not a lot of salt at all. I'm going to put a little more on here. I don't want to drench it in salt, obviously, but I think that's the best we're going to get there. So now the pears are done. So I wasn't expecting it to take quite that long, but I think the clumping just didn't help anything. So I'm going to get the pears out of the oven. Then we're going to let this cool for about 5 to 10 minutes. At this point, the recipe would be instructing us to transfer the pears over to a serving dish, which if I was preparing this dish socially, I would. But since it's just us here on Mystical Munchies, and I want to cut down on the dishes I have to wash at the end, we're going to use the same baking sheet that I baked the pears on to begin with. So what we're going to do now is we're going to top everything with the Gorgonzola and the Candied Walnuts. I've got the walnuts right here. They seem to be cool enough to handle. It's also still a bit on the clumpy side, but I don't think there's any help for that at this point. I've also never had Gorgonzola cheese, so that's going to make for an interesting experience as well. Probably just do that with the rest of them. Spread them around a bit. I don't mind the clips starting to fall off because I was using the clips to hold the parchment paper in place anyway. So that actually kind of works at this point. Get my hands in the dishwater real quick, as I'll be getting ready to also bust open the Gorgonzola cheese here in a second. So I've got that right here. I'll poke that with the scissors because that's what the scissors are here for. I was hoping it would tear off the top nice and neat, but obviously it's not going to cooperate in that regard. Whew, is that a sharp cheese? Okay, let me make sure. Probably should have checked the Best By date on here. Is there one on here? Doesn't seem to be. Not that I can see, but we'll grab 1/3 of a cup of this. Like so. Sprinkle that around. Come on. There we are. All right. With that being done and the 1/3 cup in the dishwater, I'll plate one of these and then I'll meet you guys back over at my desk. Once I close the fridge, I'll meet you guys back over at my desk after I plate one of these for the taste test. The walnuts were clumping together a little bit more than I think I was expecting them to. I've never had Gorgonzola cheese before, and it's been quite a while since I've had pears. So we're going to break this taste test. Essentially, there's going to be 3 things we're sampling: how the candied walnuts turned out, how I like the Gorgonzola cheese, and how the pears turned out. So let's find out how each piece turned out. I'm a little worried about what I hear from this candied walnut with the sugar clumping together, but let's find out. I had pears a little bit more when I was a kid, and I seem to remember them having a little more flavor than that. It seemed like, and maybe it was the type of pear. Maybe Bosco pears bake a little bit differently. These ended up being Bartlett pears as I looked on the barcode after I started working with them. And they didn't really have much flavor to speak of, especially when they came out of the oven. But I did like how the walnuts and the cheese turned out. I don't see myself making this again. Well, maybe with a different fruit potentially, but as you probably saw as well, candying the walnuts with the sugar was a nightmare to do. I feel like I should have probably left the sugar on the heat while I was adding the walnuts to it. A bigger pan probably would have helped as well, but that's music for a later day. But that is another episode of Mystical Munchies in the books. Next week we'll be making the entree, poached fish with white wine sauce and fennel, and I'm expecting that to be a Friday upload as I'll be off from work on Friday. As for the games, tomorrow we're playing Sentinels of the Multiverse, and Wednesday we're debuting G.I. Joe, the deck building game. On the subject of games, once again, I'll be live on Jester's channel with Jester and Higher Ground Gaming as we continue counting down our top 100 board games of all time on Sunday and Tuesday. Sunday will be at 8 Eastern, 7 Central. Tuesday will be at 9 Eastern, 8 Central. So stop by Jester's channel, say hi, and follow along with our lists. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.